All right, let's move on.
It's so funny.
The Harris stuff.
Amy, I think when you were here before, it was July.
Look at how happy they are, by the way. Look at how happy Morning Joe is. Like, they went from, they were the last bastion of the Biden dead enders. And look at how excited they are at these poll numbers. What happened, Joe? I thought, maybe I'm wrong, that polls didn't matter. Polls certainly didn't matter when he was trying to make an argument about how polls don't matter because you know, Joe Biden was doing worse in the polls. Fake friends. Now they're laughing. They're farting on Biden. They're laughing on him. Fake friends.
Why? We were probably talking about Joe Biden. The Trump people were talking about how...
What is the audio? Is someone pissing?
They were going to win. They were measuring the curtains, et cetera, et cetera. I think we all said it's only July. Now we can say it's only August. So it's still early. But again, quoting Churchill for the 18th time, at least it's now sort of the end of the beginning. We're about to get into the full swing of the campaign. You've got new numbers from swing states. What are you finding?
Yeah, you're right. This race has been reset, certainly since May, but even since July when President Biden dropped out. Look, back in May, we saw Biden trailing.
The DNC have been firebombing my home in Palestine every time I vote for them. Switch to Republican, not because I think they will do better, but because I don't want to reward DNC bullshit. Tim Walz's going to level my entire neighborhood. At least with Trump, we get funny clips. Bro, that is an insane bargain, dude. Good luck with that, man, my man. Like, I don't know what to tell you. No, I get wanting to punish the Democratic Party, and you should definitely be very outspoken about that. You should even turn around and say that you're not only not voting for the Democratic Party, but the Republican Party as well, when you're communicating your desires for the Democratic Party to change their trajectory on this. But if you think for a moment that like Donald Trump's going to be better for Gaza, dude, if you ask me to check your chat log one more fucking time, I'm going to tell you right now, I am putting you on a Boeing spaceship to the International Space Station where your 8-day trip is going to turn into an 8-month trip. Do you understand me? You are becoming a fucking astronaut. Take a week off. Literally has not. That chatter has been trying to get me to watch a Majority Report clip and has not stopped. I know. I see it. He adds me every fucking time. If I don't fucking check your logs, that means I saw it and I moved on. Okay? I saw it and I moved on. You should too.
In all of the swing states, or at best tied. Right now, Harris is either leading or tied with Trump in those swing states.
What's up?
There's one state, Nevada, which she's still trailing in. But overall, if you look at those 7 swing states, Harris is up, again, within the margin, but up 48-47. Biden was down by 3 points. So it's a reset. What's, to me, the most remarkable piece of this poll, and it's what we've been seeing in surveys now that have been coming out in the last week or so, is how little she has been burdened, shall we say, by her association with the administration. She's the sitting vice president, and yet 59% of voters think that she is basically the change candidate. She's turning the page from Trump and Biden. She is a generational change, obviously, but they believe that too. And even though Trump is ahead on issues like immigration and the economy, on inflation, obviously the number one issue for so many voters, she's only trailing Trump by 6 points. I think if Biden were in, Biden were in this race, it would be a much bigger margin.
Amy, when you were here last with those polls that showed so much of this race had swung toward Donald Trump, there was, as you know, among Democrats, a sense of almost resignation midsummer of the debate was a disaster. Joe Biden, we love the guy, but he's too old. I'm not going to go vote for Donald Trump, but I think I'm sitting this one out. Is that what this is about? I think
that's exactly what we're seeing is those voters who were parking themselves in, I'm going to vote for RFK Jr. maybe, or I'm undecided, have now all come back to Democrats. What's interesting, too, is RFK Jr. now is more of a problem for Trump than he is for Harris. Again, many of her voters now coming back to her, but the RFK voter is just by profile is somebody who should be or would be more would be more interested in voting for Donald Trump.
So, Amy, is it over?
Can you explain why RFK Jr. is a bad choice? No, I'm done. I'm done explaining it. I've explained it far too many times. Like, if I'm going to vote for RFK, I'm going to vote Democrat. Like, why the fuck would I vote for a Democrat who is just as pro-Israel as the rest of the Democratic Party is, but then also is like anti-medicine? I'm good on that. Like, my major issue isn't just like, it's not even just vaccines, it's just medication in general. Okay? My major issue with the Democratic Party is not that, like, I want a guy who is basically a regular ass Democrat with like two exceptions: medication, medicine, anti-medicine.
Stating it to indicate that the movement of voters back toward the vice president who are sitting on the fence or just not thinking about things. Is it a combination of relief and gratitude among voters? Gratitude toward the president for withdrawing, and relief that, as you point out, a sitting vice president of the United States is now someone new?
She's new. And I do think, I do wonder if she weren't a woman, if this weren't as historic as it is, if you would have that level of movement and intensity. Because she literally is, even if you don't know much about.
No, it's just because she's not Joe Biden. That's it. That's the only thing she's not that has been the most helpful thing, okay?
Politics. You're not following this day to day. You've been hearing and seeing from two older white guys for a long time.
She is just not Joe Biden. She is not a carcass. The people do not have a problem with the Democratic Party's platform. That's why a generic Democrat, according to the New York Times poll that I keep reiterating over and over again, a couple months ago showed a generic Democrat winning 25 points, like a generic Democrat up 25 points over Joe Biden. Kamala Harris is simply not a carcass. That's it. It's not because she's a woman. It's not because she's a black woman. It's not because she's a black Indian woman. None of that matters all that much in the grand scheme of things, especially for the Democratic Party voters. It's because she's a generic Democrat who is much younger.
Long time now, and being very uninspired by it. And then all of a sudden, here comes this woman who doesn't look or act or sound like anything you've seen before in politics, and suddenly it's like, I'm gonna listen in. So she's getting a benefit of the doubt that
this is just delusion overall. It's not like Kamala Harris is like a uniquely charismatic figure. As a matter of fact, all the coconut memes come from, or like the wheels on the bus, or all the laughing memes literally come from the fact that she's kind of goofy and not super charismatic. It's okay. You don't have to be, okay? Especially when people are geared towards voting for the not a carcass vote. Like, this is just delusional, in my opinion.
Is quite remarkable for a sitting vice president.
So, Jamar, what we're seeing here are trends that it's not that Donald Trump is losing support, but rather that Kamala Harris has gained support, reconsolidating, as Amy just said. And I think it's particularly of note as you talk to Democrats, how they feel younger voters coming home. And certainly.
Serious question, why do you watch random MSM pundits? I tune in here so I can avoid them. I watch mainstream media pundits so that I can do commentary over it.
Voters of color. And that's just a coalition that she has to build, particularly in the suburbs and the big cities in these battleground states.
Yeah, it feels like folks coming home rather than her moving undecided voters to the Democratic column. And there's obviously a huge difference. Now, in an era of polarization, getting Democrats to come home, getting them motivated is crucial because mobilization matters. I don't think it matters as much as persuasion, but mobilization matters a lot. The key for her is going to be the next phase, which is persuasion, which is moving undecided voters to the Democratic column. Those numbers you guys flashed on the screen for the VP are positive vis-a-vis where Biden was, but they're still challenging for a Democratic candidate for president. Look, it's not ideal to be losing narrowly in Nevada and to be tied in Pennsylvania right now, because if you lose those two states, the path to the White House gets really complicated for a Democrat. But obviously, this is a lot better than where they were a few months ago. And also, guys, it's important to point out what she's also done. She stabilized down ballot. Because speaking of Democrats coming home, there were so many House and Senate Democratic candidates who were worried that they
were now toast because Biden was so weak on top of the ticket. At the very least now, she's helped stabilize candidates who were looking for volunteers, who were looking for support, looking for contributions, and all that was drying up over the summer. Now, at least, I think a lot of folks down ballot feel better about their chances.
Yeah. In a race like this, a rising tide really does lift all boats. Democrats don't like it.
Y'all didn't want this, Joe. Joe, you hated that, Joe. You were advocating against it, Joe. You kept saying these people are crazy, Joe. The fuck happened? You didn't put respect on Nancy Pelosi's name. That's what fucking happened.
Yeah, it really does, and it's exactly what's happening here. Donnie,
yeah, these guys are the worst instincts, bro. They were also on Team Shapiro as well. They just lucked into so many sequential W's from the Democratic Party, responding to pressure in a way that they never have. There's also one other W that I got to give to Joe Biden. New conversations coming out from the chaos and confusion that was happening has basically, one, vindicated AOC about the chaos and the confusion behind the scenes that she was warning about, and two, kind of gave Joe a little bit of a W. It turns out that Joe Biden's dropping and also simultaneous endorsement of Kamala Harris came as a bit of a shock, because it seems like Nancy Pelosi was actually interested in doing the thing that I thought was very devastating, an open primary. I think that was Joe's last, like, fuck you, but it actually worked in favor for the Democratic Party and its chances come November. As I said before, it would have been it would have been great for content. I'm going to the DNC regardless, right? It would have been great for content, but it would have been horrible for the Democratic Party if they were doing an open primary right now, like coming up to an open primary, people fucking petitioning, trying to put their name out there. It would have been a tornado. Loki AOC was very right. I did not think so at the time. AOC was the one who said that was what was going on behind closed doors. It made me think that maybe she's lying to save face a little bit, because of how unimaginably insane that is in terms of like how Democrats still could not see how much chaos that would create. Imagine a Walz ticket, brother. There is no world where first of all, Tim Walz is great. You should thank Kamala Harris for that. Okay, you should thank Nancy Pelosi for that as well, but you should thank Kamala Harris for that. Walz never had fucking presidential ambitions. What are we talking about? It would have been Gavin Newsom going up against like all these other like random fucking Democrats, with Nancy Pelosi most likely pushing for Gavin Newsom. Josh Shapiro as well, potentially. The reality is that the party would have been in utter panic. A lot more people would pay attention, but it would have looked so chaotic and so disordered. Why are we assuming AOC calling out the machinations against Kamala didn't help corner donors into jumping on board following Biden's baton pass? Yeah, this was luck after luck after luck. One thing it wasn't was true party competence, it seems. I don't know why Nancy Pelosi personally also openly revealed that she was open for an open primary. I said open like 8 times, but it would have been a horrible idea.
I was saying that the evidence that young voters were coming home to Democrats was anecdotal before. Now we see the numbers that is happening. I suspect it will continue to happen. But, you know, that was Joe Biden's biggest challenge. As has been pointed out here, it's not that Donald Trump is losing voters. It's that Kamala Harris is picking up voters that were staying away. But younger voters coming home, people of color voters coming home, women, more women moving to Kamala Harris in her direction. I think especially important, though, even though they don't vote as much as older voters, younger voters, the energy that is now behind Kamala Harris is just so striking. And I say that mainly anecdotally, but there's so many younger voters that were going to sit it out or just had no connection to Joe Biden, but now want to volunteer, that want to go to rallies, that want to make phone calls. It's pretty striking, just the difference a month makes.
2 words, and you guys have talked about it: hope
and change. If you look back the last 30 years, when the Democrats have had that enthusiasm, that kind of wave that we're feeling. With Bill Clinton, I worked on Bill Clinton's campaign in 1992, did advertising, and of course with Barack Obama, you had that hope and change. Hillary Clinton, you couldn't.
That high-pitched noise that you hear is a staple for Morning Joe. Because the average age of Morning Joe watchers are like 86, no one fucking hears it. It's so goddamn annoying. Every clip I watch from them has that high-pitched noise in the background. I try to not bring it up because now you're going to hear it too and not be able to unhear it. But that is the reason. Because most people that watch Morning Joe are not in this community. They're 80 fucking 5 years old. So obviously they don't hear the high pitch. It's really goddamn annoying, though.
Didn't sell that, and she lost. Joe Biden, he won, he squeaked it out, but there wasn't that enthusiasm. Why? Because you couldn't sell hope and change. When you have that, you're almost unbeatable. That's kind of what you mentioned. Every constituency, young people, people of color, they want hope, they want change. Pretty much everybody wants that. Even if you're happy in your life, you say hope. You want more hope? Yeah. You want more change? Yeah. So that's the thing. That's the wave that's happening, and that's what the Cook Report is saying. That's what all the anecdotal things are saying. So when you have that, as I said, those magical two words, and Donald Trump can stand on his head. There's one thing he can't give you is change, and he certainly can't give you hope. He's going in the opposite direction. So once again, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, hope and change.
And the word you keep hearing at these rallies is joy. People are happy to be there. They're enthusiastic. And contrast that with Donald Trump on X for 2 hours, with Elon Musk just laying out his grievances. A very different picture there. A number inside your report, Amy, that will hearten the Harris campaign is this independent number, which 3 months ago, Donald Trump, in your analysis, +3. Now Harris +8. That's a huge number.
It is a big movement, and it's a lot of independent women that are coming over and right now supporting Harris. I think, to Jonathan's point, when you look at who those undecided voters are, or people who are...
Kamala's malleability as a politician is her best trait. I think it is not the worst thing in this situation. It's just entirely dependent on how she moves going forward. Like I said, basically, I think in a holding pattern in terms of her policies, they're like doing a slow drip release of the policies. They obviously can't avoid it once the DNC comes around. Part of that is because when you have no policies, when you don't have the white paper out, they're not going to be able to attack them and be like, this is a devastatingly bad idea, whatever. It's like reverse Project 2025. Like Republicans are not able to tackle any of the ideas because she's currently just riding the momentum wave. I would like to also see her policies. Some of the stuff that they've mentioned so far are pretty good, pretty progressive. The Tim Walz pick basically locks her into more radical, quote unquote, radical progressive policies in general. We'll see.
Are still saying maybe I'll vote third party. They are very cross-pressured on the following. They feel very anxious about the economy. They do feel like inflation is getting worse at a higher level than the overall electorate. They don't like Donald Trump personally. I mean, I feel like we've been rerunning this same playbook now for a long time of voters who say, well, I mean, I kind of liked his policies when he was president. Oh, I don't really like how he acts. And so those voters, how Harris talks to those voters, how she's able to, as Jonathan pointed out, persuade them that she's going to be able to deliver for them. And more important, if Trump can stay on the message about the economy. But again, I feel like we had this conversation over and over again. If only he would stick to a message on the thing that he's actually winning on.
Yeah, that's a lot of people inside the campaign and the Republican Party.
It gets worse every time Joe speaks. Oh my God.
Would like him to do the same thing.
I think it's because they just don't want anyone under the age of like 80 to hear what he has to say.
He's not. Jane Mort, I want to underline something that you said. I think it's so important for people watching. Yes, these numbers have shifted. Where we are right now, though, if you look at all these numbers, kind of where we were a month ago as far as this race being close. This is still tied. This race is tied right now. Now, it's tied with a slight lean to Harris. A month ago, it was tied and with a slight lean, except in Nevada and North.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I thought those polls were insignificant, inconsequential, irrelevant, utterly irrelevant. I've been tuning into your goddamn broadcast every fucking day for the past couple of months, Joe. I've heard you personally say on numerous occasions that those polls are just inconsequential. It's hokum. No one should read into them at all. It's a conspiracy to dethrone the GOAT, your GOAT.
North Carolina, if you look at those numbers, in
Joe Fraud Burrow.
with a slight lean and all the states that really make a huge difference. It was, so it's Harris +2. Now in Arizona, it was Trump +1. Tied in Georgia, it was Trump +3. You go down this list, everything except for Nevada and North Carolina, those are all within the margin of error. This race is tied.
Yeah, Joe, we're in an era of political trench warfare. This is World War I in American politics. Amy mentioned the same conversation that we've all been having for 9 years. Well, yeah, because we're a 51-49 country and Democrats have an advantage. But obviously we have an electoral college, not a popular vote. So it's a toss-up country, and it has been now for the last 3 presidential elections. But Joe, 2 things. First of all, if you look at Georgia and North Carolina in that graphic you just showed, this is important to focus on, too. And it does show the possibility that Kamala Harris could galvanize black voters in a way that we haven't seen since 2012 in American politics. Look at that number there, where she obviously has moved numbers in Georgia and North Carolina, both states with significant black populations. Boy, if she can win Georgia and North Carolina, that really, really changes the equation, because obviously it creates less pressure on her to carry all 3 of those states in the Great Lakes.